What are some of the best practices to modernizing data analytics?
Absolutely. Well, we can definitely start with we have a architecture reference that all the pieces that go with the cloud. There it is on the screen. Thanks for sharing, team. But before we even get into this, it's a great visual. I'll talk to that in just 1 second. So again, we want to make sure the best practices are a little bit of repetition here, but making sure we stay aligned with the business. And then really what I mean by that is making sure the business stays engaged. The business needs to see progress, understand where it's going, because these things don't happen overnight. These are very easily 6 to 12 to 18-month transformations. And it's a big word. It's a transformation. And the business needs to stay engaged along the way.
Right.
Once you have that, the other one, again, best practices, you got to get the governance going out of the gate. You got to make sure that what we're going to push to the cloud, what we're going to spend and invest strategically in the cloud, that we're putting our best foot forward. And what I mean by that is good data. Mm-hmm. We have garbage data, like I said before, garbage in, garbage out. Whether we move it to the cloud, it's going to have the same process. So that governance to oversee the right skills, the right process, the right cleansing of the data manipulation of the data before it even gets there, so that once we do release the first new sexy dashboard in Tableau or Power BI or whatever your tool is, that it's consumable and that it's not a pain point.
Right.
So once you get past those couple of things and tackle, again, the business alignment and engagement and the governance, we have what we see on here on the screen. I want to kind of talk to this a little bit. So this is kind of a reference architecture guide. It can be a little overwhelming. There's a good 25 or so icons on here, and you don't have to have every one of these, but it's important to talk about these one as part of the ecosystem that you're actually going to put in the cloud. So briefly, data sources. Again, we talked about this a little bit. Okay, it's defining them and prioritizing the data sources. You've got structured, you've got on-prem, you got different locations, you've got IoT data sets coming from different applications. We need to understand what's the priority, what's the ones that are the most valuable econometric value to the business, and that's where we should start. Right. The ingestion, based upon those prioritized data sets, there's lots of ingestions. There's lots of ETL tools out there. Again, Azure has a complete stack. Other great tools are Snowflake and Informatica. But regardless of the tool, again, can the right tool align with the right priority, size, type of data sources that we need to get to the business quickly? So is that real time? Is that batch loading? Is that, you name it, streaming data? So different data types, different business needs require different type of tools and ingestion. Then you have that middle section, kind of the blue section, where you talk about your repositories. Again, we touched a little bit on, okay, it's very standard now to have a data lake. Just get the data to the cloud, get it there in a raw zone, and then from there you can transform, stage it, load it actually into tools like a data warehouse, and some other more advanced data science models. So the understanding, again, what the business needs depends on what type of repository or holding of the data, housing of the data we need. The processing goes very well along with kind of the ingestion model. How do we move that data from within the cloud, from A to B? How do we transform that effectively? Too many transformations of data on the fly can actually be quite costly. So just getting it there, doing some transformations, maybe with some Azure Databricks to keep costs down rather than trying to do it all in Azure Data Factory to keep costs low is another good tip and trick. Again, the bottom section of the blue there, again, is the data governance. We've kind of touched on that. But again, security is a big component. Once one of those fear of going to the cloud, how do I ensure, am I actually putting my company more at risk? How do we ensure the right access, that every piece of data that goes in is encrypted and at the right level? To do that, you need to actually have a part of that COE or that governance model. You need to have a very big focus on security. What are we willing to put in the cloud? There's certain pieces of information, personal information, financial information that maybe we don't want to take that risk. So those need to be aligned on up front as well. Right. So again, the presentation kind of layer on the right over here is again kind of the last piece of this of how do we serve the business now to serve the data to the business. Mm-hmm. There's multiple tools out there, but serve it to them in the right way. To some degree, you crawl before you walk, before you run. So getting them good content, serving it to them, getting interactions started. And then as their skills grow, back to that people, process, technology, you can start unleashing some of the guardrails and having them actually do some more of their modeling on top of that thin kind of orange line there on the right of a semantic layer where they know that everything coming to them now is certified data.
Mhm.
It's vetted. The governance team is watching it and guaranteeing its accuracy to some degree, to some percentage. And so the business now has the comfort of knowing that, okay, we're all pulling the same data, whether it be sales data or product data or customer data. We're all starting with the same certified, accurate data sources. So there was a lot there to cover on the slide. Again, it's not to say you need every single piece of this to start. Again, it can be overwhelming. Aim big, start small, but every one of these needs to be talked about in general to understand what we need to put in place or why we may not need one of these.